All right, here's a video for 7.4, practice A, and you'll do practice B and the puzzle on your own as practice. But I want to give you practice A so you know how to do those. We are going to be adding and subtracting fractions on this section. So let me recap. So go up here above it, just a recap on how to add and subtract fractions. So if we have like 1/3 plus 1/3, we can add those together and get 2/3. You're always gonna keep your bottom number. But in order to add the tops, you have to have the same bottom number. So if I don't have the same tops, let's say I have 1/3 plus 1/4, then I have to find what we call a lowest common denominator. That will allow me to add the two fractions. So I know that 3 and 4, and multiplying them together is usually, or is always, a right answer. It may not be the lowest, but it always is a right answer. In this case, it is the lowest. 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to change both fractions into twelfths. To do that, I'm going to multiply the first fraction by 4 on top and bottom, and that gives me 4/12. Now that's the same value as 1/3. It's just in a different format. We multiplied top and bottom by 4 and got 4/12. Second fraction, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 3 and get 3/12. Now I can add them together and get 7/12. 3 plus 4 is 7. So that's how we add fractions. We do the same thing for subtraction. So the first three, let's go ahead and take a look at those. First three are all going to be common denominators for us. So that's a good thing. They're all giving us the same denominators. So we can add those pretty quickly. So the first one, you're just going to add the top numbers and get 15 over 5x. Now, since 5 is being multiplied by x, you could actually reduce. 5 goes into 15 3 times. So you could actually have your better answer would be 3 over x. Number 2, you've got x minus 3 that you cannot combine. They're not like terms. Over 9x squared. You cannot reduce anything. You cannot reduce the 3 and the 9 because the 3 has a minus in it. And it's not being multiplied. So that's going to be finished. The third one, the 7 minus the 3x they're not like terms. So you just have to leave 7 minus 3x, x minus 2, nothing can be reduced. You're actually finished on that one too. So there's 1, 2, and 3. The next 4 are asking for the least common multiple. Another way to say that is lowest common denominator, LCD. So we're looking for, if these were denominators, what would be the lowest common denominator? Let's see. So we've got a 3x squared, and then we've got a 6x minus 18. So one safe denominator would be if you multiplied those together. That would be a safe one, but that's not the lowest. So what I would do first is I would divide these both by 6, and that would change this to a 6 and an x minus 3. So we have that denominator, and we have the 3x squared denominator. So we have those two denominators. So we could use a 6x squared, because to get the whole numbers the same, 3 times 2 would be 6, so 3 goes into 6. So 6 would be a good common denominator, 6x squared, and then x minus 3. Both of our denominators would go into that one denominator. I know that's a little tricky there. But 3 goes into the 6. So we don't have to multiply 3 times 6 and put 18. We can actually use 6. So in other words, I could take this first denominator, the 3x squared plus 2, and I could make it become this denominator if I multiplied it by a 2 and if I multiplied it by an x minus 3. If I multiplied it by those two things, I would get that denominator. I could take this denominator and just multiply it by an x squared, and I would have this denominator. So there is something I could multiply each one of these by to get that denominator. So that's how you find the common denominator. Now on the number 5 is actually easier because they already have the 5x. So you just need to multiply the first one by x plus 2. So your common denominator is that right there. It's already done. I mean, that's already the denominator. If I take the first one and just multiply it by x plus 2, I have the same denominator. They'd be common denominators. Number 6, you would really have to, you'd have to factor this one down. This x squared minus 9 is actually x plus 3 and x minus 3. And then your other one is x plus 3. So your common denominator would be the first denominator. X plus 3, x minus 3 would be our common denominator, because you could take the second one, x plus 3, and just multiply it by x minus 3 on top and bottom and get that same denominator. So that would be a common denominator. You could get both denominators to be that. You got to find out what you could get both denominators to become. Just like we did up here on here, 3 and 4. What could we get 3 and 4 to both become? We could get them to both become a 12. Multiplying that one by 4, multiplying that one by 3. So they're asking you is what could you make both of these denominators become, and they could both become this. This one is already this. This one you just need to multiply by x minus 3. Okay, number 7. You got to factor the down, this one down, this negative 10 with a negative 3 on the bottom. What two numbers multiply to give you negative 10 and add up to negative 3? I'm thinking a negative 5 with a positive 2. If you multiply those two, you get negative 10. If you add those two, you get negative 3. So your first one is x minus 5 and x plus 2. Your second denominator is just x plus 2. So they already have the x plus 2 in common. You just need to get the x minus 5, so you would need to multiply the second one by x minus 5. So that is your common denominator. You could get the second denominator to become that denominator just by multiplying it by x minus 5. Let's see, number 8. We can't do this. We need a common denominator. You must have a common denominator in order to add those fractions. All right, those are the first 8. Let's go to 9 through 12. Now they're going to make us work a little bit for these. The first ones were all common denominators. So 2x squared and 3x. So what could we get them both to become? If it was just a 2 and a 3, we could get them both to become a 6. So I'm thinking I'm going to need a 6 in there somewhere. X squared we could leave, and x, we could get the x to become x squared. So this first fraction, I'm just going to multiply them both by 3 and get 21. The second fraction, I'm going to multiply them both by 2 and an x, because that will give me my 6x squared. So I got to do 2x up here, which is 8x. Now I have a common denominator, so I can just add the top numbers. 21 minus 8x over 6x squared. And that could be added together. Okay, number 10. Let's find 10 here. So we have x minus 1, we have x plus 2. So again, the safest denominator is just adding those two together. I mean, multiplying them together. So x minus 1 times x plus 2 could be your common denominator. X minus 1 times x plus 2 for both denominators. So the first fraction, you're just going to need to multiply by the x plus 2 on top and bottom. So 2x plus 4 is what we're going to get up here after you distribute. The second fraction, you got to multiply by x minus 1. So that's going to be 4x minus 4. And then you can just combine now your like terms on top. So you're going to get 6x. And you're going to get the 4's to cancel because one's a plus 4, one's a minus 4. And your denominator was x minus 1 and x plus 2. So that is your answer to 10. So 11 is just the same as 10, so let's look at 12. So you don't have to write number 11 on your notes, you'll just do it when you get to practice B. So let's look at 12. 12, you need to factor this one first. So two numbers that would multiply to give us negative 18, but add up to 7 would be a 9 times a negative 2. So you're going to have a denominator of x with a positive 9, that's this first 9 right there, and x with a negative 2. And your other one already has the x plus 9, so you just need the x minus 2 into the second fraction. So we're going to use our common denominator. Let me move this up like this so you can see it down here. Okay, so we're going to do, common denominator is going to be x plus 9, x minus 2. That's going to be in both fractions. X plus 9, x minus 2. Okay, both fractions. And the first one, we don't have to do anything because it was already x plus 9, x minus 2. So we're just going to put the 14 up there. The second one, though, you need to multiply by x minus 2 on top and bottom. So you need 6x minus 12 to be the top here. 6x minus 12. So now we're looking for like terms. No, that's not like terms. 14 and 12 are like terms. So 6x, and then plus 2. Because 14 minus 12 is 2. And then x plus 9, x minus 2 would be your denominator. So that would be your addition of those two fractions. Oops, I just messed that up. Okay, so that's 1 through 12. Let's see. We've already done these on previous, so we're not going to do those on this one. Cross those out. Let's look at practice B so you guys know which ones that you need to do. Okay, so, all right, we'll just do 1 through 12. So you can cross out 13 through 18 in practice B. And when you do the puzzle, you should be able to do all those. Now they're going to kind of combine. We did adding and subtracting, and there's multiplying and dividing from the previous section. So they're kind of give you some, combine them. This big line is a division, so you're just going to multiply by the reciprocal. So just like you did on 7.3. So look back at 7.3's notes if you forgot how to do these bottom ones. So show your work on those and attach a picture of your work to the Google Classroom. Thanks, guys.